Good evening. Welcome to the July Ordinary Meeting of Council. We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land we are meeting on, the Nala Kala Burja and Southwest Bujara people. We wish to acknowledge and respect their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of all communities and cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. I think we have everyone here tonight. Are there any any leave of absence tonight? No, there isn't. Previous public questions taken on notice?
No, Mr. Chairman.
So we move to public question time, and I think we have a couple of questions from Mike Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and councillors. The issue I refer to is the long-running Boyne-up lease agreement. I see it's been dropped off the agenda and it's before the ACCC, having spoken to some of your councillors. But for some of us, this issue has been around since the mid-90s, when Ernie Bridge was the Minister for Ag, and the industry put in place a statewide sale yard plan. And of course, Boyne-up was the anointed location for the southwest sale yard producers, whilst all the other fringe sale yards were closed down. So the lease agreement is of extreme importance going forward. 60-year-old establishment, and I guess the question is, has the Capel Shire Council had discussions with neighbouring Shire councils or taken the issue to the Southwest Regional Councils Association? I think that's what you call it. Boyne-up sale yard should be relocated to a more acceptable site, which would be supported by all livestock producers, the Boyne-up community, and not just which suits two livestock companies, which denies real competition to livestock producers. The Boyne-up sale yards are used by a large number of livestock producers, right across the southern part of the state. It's just not a Capel Shire issue, and I think all the other shires should be in it, and I've spoken to both Dardanup and Donnybrook. And they're there for that. They certainly want to keep that establishment located in the Boyne-up area, not necessarily on the current site, because I think whilst it was good when it was built, but it's outlived its usefulness there. And so I guess the question is, are you prepared to work with the neighbouring shires to build a state-of-the-art new sale yard facilities?
Mr. Norton, I'll say initially that we understand this is a very important issue for this Shire, and I think you'll see that we've spent a couple of months already deliberating carefully. We're all very aware of the issues now, and we are. I think the thing I can say on behalf of council is that we agree that above all, we'd like to see it remain in the Shire. How that happens is yet to be determined. For an additional information in answer to your question, I'll hand you to the acting CEO, Robert Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Norton. Although my answer may not be very satisfactory for you, but thank you for your question. Unfortunately, we are unable to provide an answer, as the Shire has been advised by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission that the Commission has begun an investigation into matters relating to the Boyne-up cattle sale yards. And just as an addition to that answer, that's the reason the matter was withdrawn from the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart, and we're well aware of that, but we certainly wanted to, WA farmers definitely wanted to make the councillors aware of our position, because it's going to come up again, regardless of what the ACCC does. And we really need to start thinking as our next move, which moves into the second question, will the Capel Shire Council look positively at relocating Boyne-up sale yards to a more acceptable site with the support and help of the livestock industry and neighbouring local government councils? The Boyne-up sale yard has reached its use by date has come. It will now be a matter that will not matter how much capital expenditure is put into that site, it will never fix the environmental, the animal welfare and large livestock trucks mixed with pedestrian traffic that exists on that site. And I think you're our last hope, because both sides of politics have kicked the can down the road and avoided the issue for the last 15 years. So unfortunately, it revolves around you people to make a decision that's going to be in the best interest of the livestock producers right across the southern part of Western Australia.
Yes, we understand that. Acting CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, my answer is going to be exactly the same. Unfortunately, we're unable to provide an answer, as the Shire has been advised by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission that the Commission has begun an investigation into matters relating to the Boynup cattle sale yards. I might just add to that I have, during the week, spoken with the CEO of the WA Farmers Federation, just to let him know what the situation was in very general terms, because we are talking about some legal issues now.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart, and it will be on the agenda on Friday at the WA Farmers General Council meeting. So, thank you very much, councillors, for your help and attention.
Yep, thanks, Mr. Norton. Now we have some questions from Bronwyn Mutton.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask these questions. I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the protocol of who I should address this to, but it's to the councillors regarding the southwest, the comment, it's to do with the bushfire mitigation notice and the new regulations. The southwest of WA is the only Australian biodiversity hotspot recognised internationally. This should be treasured and protected. Instead, steadily, for multiple reasons, this area, including Capel, is being cleared. This biodiversity hotspot is recognised for local native flora, also for the wildlife, insects, birds and animals which live here. The new bushfire mitigation regulations require clearing of some of the prime remnant tuart trees hundreds of years old, for which Capel is famous. So I have a few questions together I'll ask. When the Shire of Capel councillors approved these new bushfire mitigation regulations, was thought given to the tragedy of clearing trees hundreds of years old, resulting in loss of habitat trees with nesting hollows for animals including phascogales, bats, possums, also birds including ducks, parrots and black cockatoos? Also, has consideration been given to the many thousands of dollars arborists may charge for safely clearing these huge trees? Will the Shire of Capel pay for clearing of the large trees, and how long will the waiting list be for arborists to clear these doomed large trees?
Acting CEO, do you have a response? Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Mutton, for your question. Councillors are very aware of their responsibilities relating to biodiversity, flora and fauna. The Council is also very aware of the damage that wildfires can do to the very same biodiversity. As a consequence, the Council is required to balance the needs of the protection of the environment and property and the needs of our unique flora and fauna. We also understand that many of the remnant tuart trees are on Crown land. We believe the Crown isn't bound by the Bushfires Act and therefore the Shire mitigation notice adopted under this Act. I think you asked the second question as well, didn't you?
I haven't got, there's another question as well.
Yes.
But I think you asked your second, the part B of the first question,
Yes.
so we can.
I'll also respond to
take
part
that
B.
answer.
Thank you.
Yes, the Council is aware that the costs related to the implementation of the bushfire mitigation notice can be high. Any work required on private property is the responsibility of the owner. In the same way, the Council is responsible for works required on land that it has control over.
Okay, thank you. Question 2. When the Shire of Capel councillors approved these new bushfire mitigation regulations, did they consider that many houses at Peppermint Beach are being stabilised by dense remnant shrubs? After the required remnant shrubs are cleared at Peppermint Beach, will the Shire of Capel organise and pay for building of retaining walls to stop slippage of dunes and houses downhill?
Acting CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillors are very aware of their responsibilities relating to land stewardship, including the role of vegetation in preventing erosion. The answer to the second part of your question would generally be no, depending, however, on specific circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We don't have any more notice of questions, but if there are any more questions, we have time. Yes? Can you state your name first, please?
My name is Ratko Trappel. I am a resident in Boyanup. And my question is regarding the recent employment of Mr. Gordon McMile as the new CEO of the Shire. I'm wondering whether the hiring committee in its deliberations conducted some background checks as to Mr. McMile's performance as an acting head of the local government at the Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries. And the second part of the question is, if so, why has the Council chosen to overlook the litany of failures by this department during Mr. McMile's tenure, as identified in publicly available report on WA Auditors General released earlier this year titled Regulation and Support of the Local Government Sector, which included findings that the department under Mr. McMile's stewardship and basically the top executive level failed in providing efficient and effective regulation to support the sector, like fundamental aspects of a good regulatory framework, did not have plan, that it linked its regulatory and support activities for local government entities into achieving its objectives for the sector, and did not have targets and measures in place to track its delivery performance. I would say that that is an unmitigated disaster, and while all of us have been paying Mr. McMile through our taxes up until now the ratepayers of this Shire will be doing so.
Okay. I'm not sure if I can answer that one. Perhaps I can...
I'm sorry if I may. I think that is just a total failure on this council's part, or the committee that chose to...
This is question time, so it's not statement time, it's question time. You've asked a question.
Yes.
I'm attempting to answer it. Perhaps if I can request the Deputy President, Councillor Andrew, ask her if she was the chair of the selection committee, ask her if she'd like to provide an answer.
Bit on the spot. The deliberations and what was discussed by the CEO selection committee are confidential. That's probably the extent of my comment at this time.
May I?
Sorry, you can carry on if you've got another question.
Have you read the Auditor's General report?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. Thank you for your attendance. Cheers. So, applications for leave of absence. No? declarations of interest. We have a couple. Councillor Mogg has declared a proximity interest in agenda item 13.3 in that she lives on the road in question, which is Hasty's Road in Jalora. And Councillor Andrew has declared an interest, impartiality interest in 14.4 in that somebody called Steve Duggan is known to her as a friend. Okay, that's the declarations. Any items to be discussed behind closed doors this evening? No. Confirmation of minutes. The confirmation, we require confirmation of minutes of the ordinary council meeting of 30th of June 2021. Do I have someone that could move that? Councillor Kitchen, seconded Councillor Mogg. Any discussion? Those in favour? That's carried, unanimous, thank you. Do we have any petitions? Oh, sorry, no, announcements by person. That's me. Announcements by me. Yes, I do have an announcement I'd like to make. I'd like to take this opportunity to clear up any misconceptions or misapprehensions that may have arisen around this council's position in relation to the vexed question of the Bunbury Outer Ring Road project, and also try to ensure there is common understanding around the current state of play in regards to this project. The BORR, or the BOR as it has become known, is perhaps the defining issue for this council, this current council. And the reason for that is that 4 of the 5 candidates who were elected to this council at the most recent local government elections were new councillors who overcame sitting councillors standing for re-election. And all 4 of the elected councillors made it clear and campaigned on, among other things, the position that they were opposed to the plan for the southern section of the bore to cut through the locality of Jallurup along what has become a beautiful area of natural bush known as the corridor. Given this electoral mandate, council quickly drew its line in the sand on behalf of ratepayers and residents in resolving to oppose the plan to route this 4-lane freeway through one of our suburbs and to make that clear to the state government. Now, for anyone who may be getting hot under the collar and repeating the old line that it was always intended to go down that corridor and you should have known when you bought the property, etc., what you're referring to is a 30-year-old plan for a 2-lane highway and the land that was, appropriate amount of land that was set aside for that. What is proposed now is a 4-lane freeway being squeezed into a no longer fit for purpose reserve. And what happens when you set aside, or somebody sets aside, an area of natural bush and leaves it for 30 years, is that it grows and it becomes a magnificent stand of trees, which is what this one has become, and which contains increasingly rare vegetation because during that 30 years there's been quite a bit of clearing around in the area. So what should have happened is main roads should have gone back to a drawing board. Instead of pulling a dusty old moth-eaten plan out of its bottom drawer and trying to make this work. What really irks a lot of people in this Shire about the state government's stubborn refusal to accept that this route is now redundant and to find a better one is that the northern section of the bore has been rerouted away from its initial location to go around a suburb called Wanju, which hasn't even been built yet. So it's forward thinking up there and backward thinking down here. Anyway, this council has stood firm and resolute on this issue on a number of occasions because we believe in standing up for the people who put us here and not buckling to pressure from powerful interests, including the state government. For instance, we successfully fought off a plan to put a dirty, polluting asphalt plant near the Bunbury Cathedral Grammar School and many homes. We also put the kibosh on a plan to expand Dalyellup into the contaminated green patch area, which was a former industrial waste dump. So the noisy minority, which might gain something, I don't know what, from having the southern route go ahead, have called us occasionally NIMBYs and demanded to know if we had a better solution. Personally, I believe the better solution is not to build this road. I think it's fundamentally unnecessary at the moment. And I believe the money could be better spent. But given that it is apparently going to be built, Councillor Noonan went to work and came up with an alternative, which involves a current road reserve which runs past the Bunbury Prison to link the Bore with the Bustle Highway. Now, this plan would save Julurup, would save the state hundreds of millions of dollars in construction costs, and also save the basalt resource which lies under the planned route of the southern Bore. So I just want to correct any misapprehension that we are simply proposing that our problem be moved somewhere else and it becomes someone else's problem. The Centenary Road route outlined in Councillor Noonan's motion, which has been adopted and is supported by this entire council, follows an existing road reserve already acquired by Main Roads for a 2-lane connector to the Bore. So all that would need to be done is to add 2 extra lanes, and I think the job's done. This council is simply endorsing, at its last meeting, simply endorsed the motion that this option be put before the state government. We wish to remove from the list of excuses for not listening to residents in this area that there are no better alternatives. The other thing which should be remembered about the government's current proposed southern route is that it has not yet received approvals which are necessary from either the state or Commonwealth environmental agencies. Now, I'm very proud of the way this council has stood firm on the issue and believe that we, along with our community, if we stay united, will prevail and save those beautiful, rare, ancient trees in the corridor for future generations. Thank you. We now move on to petitions, deputations or presentations. Do we have any presentations? Harley Dykstra has a presentation. Is that right? Or is that been covered by our earlier briefing? Okay, it was covered by an earlier briefing. Any motions of which previous notice has been given?
Mr Chairman, Councillor Noonan did give notice, but I believe the intention is to no longer move that.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. Okay, so we move on to questions of which previous notice have been given. No. So, all right. Now the motions that have been put forward in the agenda, and the first one is 13.1, a council member professional development policy. Do I have a mover? No. Well, we have a mover. Councillor Sciano, seconded Councillor Clues. Councillor Sciano.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing to add. Move as read.
Councillor Clues, anything? No. If there's no one else, we'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. 13.2 is the certification of compliance with the Shire of Capel's adopted model standard for CEO recruitment, performance and termination. Do I have a mover? No. Well, Councillor Sciano. Seconder? Councillor Kitchen. Councillor Sciano.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just very briefly, this is a new process, a new standard that is required of councils. We've been through this process twice in the last 12 months, and this second process has been significantly different. And my first experience with the process as a whole as well. I think the background itself, or the report that's included, obviously identifies a number of those clauses and how we performed against each of those, but generally pretty happy with You know, as a local government that really is one of the first to go through this new process as well, to sort of be setting a bit of a standard for how it should proceed.
Councillor Kitchen. I've got a question for the acting CEO. Has the new appointed CEO, is he being paid an allowance, what do they call it, location allowance? Is he being paid a housing allowance or a location allowance or some other allowance to come and live in the Shire of Capel?
Mr. Chairman, I would prefer not to speak about the new incumbent's contract of employment in public.
Well, the reason that I believe in this one case we should be able to speak about the CEO's employment terms in public is when we're asked to vote on a motion here, which includes the clause 12, which says variations to proposed terms of contract of employment. It says this clause applies if an applicant who has made an offer of employment in the position of CEO under clause 11 negotiates with the local government a contract of employment containing terms different to the proposed terms approved by the local government. So it's incumbent on me to ascertain whether the actual terms offered to the new CEO are the same as the terms contained in the contract of employment which was approved by council.
Mr. Chairman, I'm very happy to talk to councillors about that, but as it's a contract of employment, I can't talk about it while members of the public are here.
Mr. Chairman, procedural motion to move behind closed doors, if it will please.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Noonan. Procedural motion, you can have a say if you'd like.
Yes, I think clearly this probably is something that I would like to discuss also, but agree with the acting CEO that the appropriateness of doing that behind closed doors would be a better idea.
Okay, so we'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of going behind closed doors at the moment? Those against? That's lost. So we remain here, and we have a situation where I've asked a question and I can't... okay, so I'm not getting an answer. So my contribution now to the debate is that that I would like to speak against this motion, because I don't believe that we can, in terms of good governance, that we as a council can adopt this motion without understanding whether clause 12 has been breached or not, and I can't get an answer to that question. And since the answer wasn't a simple no, I'm perhaps making an assumption that there might be an issue here, and that if there is an issue here, I don't think we can go forward. So I'd recommend that we don't adopt this motion at this time. Councillor Clues.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think perhaps a question that may be able to be answered, because I don't want to be specific.
I'm sorry, is this your
question,
contribution to the debate, or you're asking a question?
A question through the chair, if I may.
Thank you. Yes.
So, was the contract signed different to that offered to the candidate or to the successful?
You don't have to ask that one through the chair. You can ask it to me, because I'm the person that signed it.
Oh, okay. To the chair.
So when I signed the contract, it was the contract that you saw that the council... no, hang on. I'm not sure. Actually, yeah, I better revise. Before I finish that answer, I thought I was signing the one that the council had adopted, but it's since been brought to my attention that there may be an additional clause relating to housing allowance or relocation allowance. Is that a
Possibly.
satisfactory answer for you
Well,
to your question, or do you have a subsequent question?
possibly the same question through the chair to the acting CEO, who may know, if possible.
Could I move a procedural motion? Could I move a motion that debate on this topic, this issue, be adjourned to the next ordinary council meeting to give us time to carry out further investigations?
Seconded. Councillor Clues? Okay, those in favour? Those against? Lost. 6-2. 2-6, whatever way you like to put it. So we go back to the substantive motion. Do I have any other speakers for or against the motion?
Mr. Chairman, can I confirm that the contract of employment that you signed was the contract of employment that was adopted by the council?
Yeah, that was my understanding too.
So a follow-up question, if I may. So that does then mean that we are okay on clause 12. This was the contract agreed to by council and therefore was the one offered to...
Well, my answer to that question, Councillor Clues, is that tonight we are being asked to certify that the employment conditions given to the new CEO are do not contain any terms different to those approved by the local government. Approved by the local government and signed by me. And I'm trying to get an answer to the question that is there another allowance that's been provided, being a housing allowance or a living away from home or relocation expenses or something. That's what I'm trying to find out, but I can't find out. So in the absence of being able to find out, I'm suggesting that I can't support the motion. That's the best way I can put it. Councillor Scott?
I might be wrong, but my understanding there's a policy on relocation expenses for staff, and I won't go broad to say staff, but relocation expenses for the CEO. There's a policy somewhere in this building that we support the relocation expenses. I think it's $5 or $6 grand. It's been utilised before, and I reckon it'll be utilised again.
Anyone else for or against? Councillor Noonan?
Thank you, Mr. President. As you probably ascertained, I would much rather have this this issue debated, or to find out this information behind closed doors. I am concerned that it could cause some reputational damage to the Shire, which I would like to avoid. However, since the council has indicated that they want to get an answer now, if there is a variation, we are duty bound to, well, I believe that we're bound, that we have to vote against this motion and then bring it back at a later stage when we've answered that question. Because if we accept it now and it turns out that there is a change or a problem, then whatever we've accepted a flawed proposal. So that's I think that's a serious problem that we have, and I'd much prefer. I know I can't move an adjournment motion again, having already moved it, but anybody else, I could make the point that any other councillor could move an adjournment motion so that this could be investigated.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? You haven't
Having
actually...
asked questions but not spoken,
Right,
I'd like a
okay,
chance to
Councillor
speak.
Clues.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think having gone through a new process here quite clearly that's been very new to everyone, and we probably are the first Shire to deal with it, I think there's some terminology in this clause 12 that, pardon me, I can understand the explanation that this clause does not. This is the quote from the agenda. This clause does not apply to this recruitment process, as the terms of the contract that was executed with the preferred candidate did not differ from the terms approved by council. But the clause 12 doesn't ask if the original discussions and negotiations had been approved by council. It just says, did negotiations occur, basically, and I'm of the understanding that they did. And I think without shoring up some background information about the what do they call it in sport when it's the feeling of that rule, or whatever the terminology is, what was actually meant when this particular clause 12 was written. I think we're probably getting lost on a couple of pretty important words that could mean two completely different things. So I'd like to see this get looked at first, and so won't be voting for it tonight.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Not really. You can answer questions. Okay, so if that's the case, we'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? So it's carried 5-3. We move on to 13.3, local roads and community infrastructure prospective projects. Now, so I think here we have something on the agenda in front of us, but we're actually we're coming back to an item which was what's the correct word? Is it adjourned? Was it adjourned? The debate was adjourned. We were discussing this item at the June Ordinary Council meeting, and it was adjourned to this one. So we'll return to that adjourned motion, and it's up on the screen there. But just to remind you, I had moved, and it had been seconded by Councillor Noonan, that as part of the Council's commitment to delivery of the local roads and community infrastructure Stage 3 project, the proposed drainage, curbing and local traffic management upgrades of Hasties Road between the start of the road and the 1.66 kilometres in, at an estimated construction cost of $383,487 be nominated, and that all necessary administrative, documentary and other preparatory works prepared by the CEO, required by the CEO in order to ensure delivery of the project within the stipulated timeframes of the LRCI Stage 3 program be authorised, and that the amount of $32,000 for preparation of final design documentation be considered in the forthcoming 2021-22 draft budget. And so that is that we would be applying for those grant funds. As it was moved and seconded, I think it was. Who had spoken? Do we know who had spoken on the thing? It was fairly quickly adjourned. Anyway, I'll open debate again, and let's hear it from Councillor Noonan.
No one had spoken. It had only been moved, and then Councillor Kitchen moved an adjournment, which led to...
Yeah, Councillor Noonan, I'll deal with the interjections from the councillors, thanks. And can I remind you, Councillor Clues, that if you wish to speak, let me know. I'll give you the call. You can ask a question or whatever you need to do. We can't have a banter across the room. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move an adjournment on this motion under 12.1C of the Standing Orders for Local Law, that the council, that we adjourn debate on this motion to give council and the senior management team time to conduct a local roads and community infrastructure workshop before the next ordinary council meeting to identify and prioritise other potential projects.
Sorry, just hold on there, and we'll let the minute taker take that down. And if you can help, please, to get that down.
Yep, to give council and the executive management team an opportunity to conduct a LRCI workshop. Yep, LRCI, yep, workshop before the next OCM in order to identify, prioritise, and prioritise other potential projects. So after identify, if you change that semicolon to an and. Great, thanks, Talia.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Kitchen. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Certainly the original motion is a good one. That is a road that does need to be repaired. However, this is just giving us the opportunity to look at other potential projects around the Shire, which are also notable or also worthy. We've talked about a few of them on the Monday briefing, and I think that it's important that the council and the senior management team have a process where we can prioritise things, having the opportunity to look at the merits and of all of the projects before we decide which one that we put in for the grant.
Councillor Kitchen. No, anyone? Councillor Clues.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through the chair, what's the closing date on applications for this grant?
I'll ask the acting CEO.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure of the exact date, but I believe it's several months away.
I'll have to speak against the motion to put this off again. I think the motion and the reasons for it to put this off again start to reflect poorly on the council, because this came to the June council meeting as well, and it was backed up by an officer's report, put it that way. And it was there. It's a worthwhile project. It's something that needs to be done. It's a glaring, I think it's a glaring deficiency, and in our works that have been done so far. So to go this far and then another month, leave it, to have an alternative put up this month. From the staff, which wasn't even canvassed last month, and then to go on for another month with a workshop in between, I think that is, you know, the look of it to me is that, you know, we're dithering. We don't know whether one project is more important than the other, and it shouldn't be about trying to rank projects and say, you know, you're more important than we. Like, for instance, what's ahead of us tonight, if your amendment fails, is this Shire essentially is being asked, the council is being asked to consider, would putting some curbs on the main road into Jallurup be something that would be preferable to renovating a pony club in Capel? And I think somebody made the comment during the week at the agenda forum that you know, we're down here while other councils are coming up with you know, competing for state and federal funding for things and getting things done. We're down here in the you know, the dust, fighting over whether Capel should get a long overdue upgrade to its main road, or whether Capel should get some more money for one of its clubs. And I don't think we should be getting into that. For me, it's patently obvious that, and it's like a running sore, an open wound, that anybody who drives into the locality of Jallurup drives in on a road which quickly doesn't have any curb on one side, then doesn't have any curb on the other side, and has gravel spilling out onto the road when the rains come. And it looks like a sort of third world environment down there. There's nothing on the verges. There's no curbs, and the presentation of that as the major entry into one of our localities is, I think, a bit of a disgrace. And this was an opportunity for this council to take the opportunity that there were grant funds available to do this kind of work and to get it done once and for all, and not leave it for another 4 or 5 years. So I'm against the amendment for those reasons. Anybody else? We'll put the amendment to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? So it's lost to 2-5. So that goes back to the substantive motion. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against the substantive motion that's in front of us? Yes. Okay, well, while we're looking at that, I'll speak again to the substantive motion and explain my reasons for supporting it. I wish to make it clear that this is grant funding that has become available. And one of the things, I mean, you might sit here, I noticed a couple of councillors mentioned that, we've got plenty of time, we can have workshops, we can talk about it a bit more. There's plenty of time before these grants have to be in. Well, in the background information, when this motion came to the June meeting, it said that there was an urgency in getting this done and to get the application in, because you know, the sooner you get in, the sooner you can get to the top of the list maybe, and get the funds and get working and get the job done, so to speak. So I'll just point out that the background to this issue, motion in June, told us there was some urgency in getting a decision made. So to put it off, we're here a month later, to put it off 1 month or 2 months more is, I don't think, advisable. So for the reasons I spelled out in my contribution to the debate on the amendment, I think it's a very good project. I think it's a project that needs to be done. And the other thing I'd like to say about it is that, you know, I do believe there's been historically there's been a sense of Jallurup, where I happen to live, as being the poor cousin or the poor relation in terms of the localities in this Shire. You only have to walk outside this building to see the millions of dollars that have been spent. And there is an equal amount of people living in Jallurup as there is in Capel, would you believe? And there's many more people living in Dalyalup. And I think a lot of, if you want to set locality against locality, I think the people in Dalyellup and Jallurup have a very good case to make that they've been overlooked for too long on basic fundamentals which are taken for granted in other localities, like having curbs on your main road. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was the seconder for this original motion, and so therefore I'm obliged under standing orders and procedures to support the motion. However, I would point out that there are a lot of people in Jallurup who like the fact that it has that it doesn't have an entry statement in the same way that Boynup and Capel do, and Dalyellup. It's nice sometimes to have that anonymity. I know that some people appreciate that. It's nice not having footpaths. It's nice not having street lights because, there are benefits in not having some of those things. And the people who tend to go to Jallurup go there because that's the environment that it is. And I know that Stratham is very similar for many people who choose to live there as well. Once again, I would point out that it is possible for anybody else to move a motion to adjourn to conduct a workshop if anyone else felt obliged to do that. And I would like that to happen because I believe that there are more important projects. I genuinely believe there are more important projects such as the Bunbury to Bustleton bike path. You know, we have had situations where kids have been killed on Bustle Highway because it is not possible to ride your bike from Stratham to Dalyellup to go to school without heading out on Bustle Highway. I think that's a more important project and something that the money should be spent on. I think that the facilities at Stratham Beach are just, a disgrace really for the Shire, that they should be improved. There are a number of other projects that I think are more important. Certainly the entry to Jallurup is important, but I think there are other projects that are more important. All of this stems from the lack of having done preparation for this sort of thing beforehand. We should ideally be in a situation where any funding that becomes available, the President, the CEO, the Council have got drawers full of projects which had gone to final design and final costing, and so they can just pull them out and say, the federal government, there you go, that's what we'd like you to do, the Bunbury to Bustleton bike path. There you go, we want you to fix up Stratham Beach. There you go, we want you to fix the Capel Equestrian Centre. But we haven't got to that situation, and there are other councils around the state and other regional groups of councils who have done that, and because they've got a whole filing cabinet worth of shovel-ready projects, they're just pulling them out one after the other, and they're raking in millions of dollars, and we are missing out because we are not prepared. We are not ready for that. So it leads to exactly the problem that you pointed out, Mr. President, that and this is not good for the Shire, because we end up with this situation where we have one community saying, "Oh, look what they've got," and then the other community saying, "Oh, look what you've got." We shouldn't be arguing about who gets what in the Shire. We should be making the federal government and the state government argue about who's the best supporter of Capel Shire. We should be getting the Liberal Party and the Labor Party duking it out at federal and state level to see how much money they can give us. So once again, I'd remind any other councillors that they can move a motion of adjournment. I can't. They can. If they would like to have a workshop where we can perhaps look at this in a more, in a more measured way and prioritise the projects that are available. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anyone else for or against? Councillor Clues.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, question 2, or through the chair, whichever you wish. I don't remember seeing any feedback in any of our surveys that suggested a desire for curbing through Jalorup. Are you aware of any?
Councillor Clues, the answer to that is that this is an issue that has been raised by residents in Jalorup in the past. Maybe not specifically at the one in the forum that you're talking about, but in the past, and this came, I think this has been to council a few years ago. I think all that was in the background in June. So it's not just my thought bubble, put it that way.
Thank you. I wasn't suggesting that for a second. I apologise if you got that that feeling. No, look, I agree with Kieran. I think we need to get with our new CEO, get our new team built, get our business organised, and start doing a better job of getting planning done on projects like this. He's exactly right. We should have a list of shovel-ready jobs ready to go, and we miss out on grants for not having them. So, by doing that is one of the quickest and easiest ways to stop insisting on requiring rate increases to fund projects. So I'd much prefer we sat on that, and I'd love to see curbs there. I absolutely agree with you. The new curbs they've put in on Jules Road look fantastic, and potentially the rest of that locality should share those quality curbings. But I'd like to see that done with community consultation and with prior planning.
Anyone else? If not, I'll sum up, and I'll sum up by just want to refer to what Councillor Noonan said and backed up by Councillor Clues. What Councillor Noonan was suggesting by saying, "Oh, we should be workshopping these, and there are other better projects," is exactly what we shouldn't be doing. We shouldn't be talking about, "Oh, that project's better than this one and that one's." That's what I mean by we're scrapping in the dust over the little bones that are thrown our way. And you're suggesting, Councillor Noonan, is suggesting that that we do exactly that. He's put to this council tonight that there are better projects than the curbs on the main road into Jalorup. It's not a case of better projects. It's a case of they're all good projects. They're all projects that should be done. They're all things that need to be done. And how long are those curbs not been there on that road into Jalorup? At least 5 or 6 years that I've been able to ascertain. So what I'm saying is, well, and here's another point I want to make. When other projects came here, the project I mentioned, the outside here, all in favour. I'm all in favour. I was all in favour. I'm all in favour of, there was a road that went through, the main road in Stratham was recently upgraded and still being upgraded. What is it, Roberts Road? Is that right? Sorry? Ramsey Road, right? Ramsey Road's been upgraded. I voted for it. I think it was unanimous. I didn't come here and say, "Oh, there are better things to do than fund Ramsey Road. There's another road over in so-and-so that needs doing." We shouldn't be ranking them. So I found it a little bit egregious, the points that were being made by Councillor Noonan, that this beach project and that path was much more important than the road into Jalorup. They're all equally important. They're all things that should be done. So when something comes before council, like the one that came before council in June, to fix a blatantly needed road, we should, the first thought that occurs to us shouldn't be, "Oh, I'd rather the money got spent in X, Y, and Z." We should be thinking, does this need doing? Yes, it does. Has it needed doing for a long time? Yes. let's do it. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That's lost. You have to vote, Councillor Clues. Okay, well, it's lost anyway, so 4-3. Okay, sorry about that. We move on to 13.4, which is the WALGA. Oh, we better get Councillor Mogg back in. And then we'll move on to 13.4, the WALGA Local Government Convention for 2021 and the annual general meeting, and our delegates to same. Well, yeah, we had a anyway, I'll get the, because you're telling me that I'm wrong, I'll ask the acting CEO to explain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what we've just done is dispense with an item that was previously adjourned. Anything before the council now is simply and no more than an officer recommendation. So that is completely in the hands of this meeting as to whether you choose to deal with that or not. No compulsion for you to deal with an officer recommendation. I have also indicated to the presiding member that should there be no decision about this tonight, we will need to bring another report back to the council in any case. That in fact would satisfy what some of you are trying to achieve, because we will nevertheless have to put a proposal before the council for adoption with regard to those grant funds. It's possibly, but not my decision at all, completely your decision, possibly better to leave it at the moment and wait for another report with a complete summary of all possible options, remembering that this began as a notice of motion. It wasn't something that we were trying to get those shovel-ready projects. So when it was deferred, we tried our best then to bring it forward. But as I'll say again, the matter is in the hands of the council now.
So we move on to 13.4, which is the WALGA Local Government Convention 2021 and Annual General Meeting, and the motion before us is that, and I'll move it, that council, I haven't got the wording in front of me, can you help me, Acting CEO, with 13.4?
There's a potential alternative.
Yeah. So I'll move that Councillors Kitchen and Councillor Mogg be nominated as voting delegates for the WALGA Annual General Meeting to be held on the 20th of September 2021. And 2, that the voting delegates above be authorised to attend the local government convention and all costs for registration, travel, accommodation and meals be paid in accordance with council policies 1.3 travel expense and 1.6 conference and training expenses. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Noonan. Nothing. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Councillor Scott.
Can I add a point 4?
A point 3.
Oh, 2's gone, yeah, make it 3. I had 4 up before, make 3.
So this is an amendment.
Yes. That the new CEO given the opportunity to also attend the WALGA's State Conference.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Andrew. Councillor Scott.
I just think it's opportune time for the gentleman to get up amongst local governments. Spend 3 or 4 days. You do a lot of backslapping, you do a lot of strategic work. and you hear a lot of stories from other local governments, and I think it'd be opportune time for our new CEO to go and do it if he's prepared to go.
Anyone else? I'll speak against the amendment because I think if there's any new CEO that wouldn't need to go to a WALGA annual general meeting, it's the one that we have appointed, because his previous role was Director of the Department of Local Government in the Department of Local Government Cultural Affairs and something else, and that he is well known to the WALGA people. He is well known to, obviously in that role, probably well known to a lot of local government mayors, CEOs, presidents. I would suggest that he has a fantastic network, and that his time would be better spent here finding his feet in Capel. Anyone else? Put it to the vote, the amendment to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? So that's carried 6-2. That becomes the substantive motion. Anything else on the substantive motion? Those in favour? Carried unanimous. 14.1, the policy review for crossovers. Do I have a mover? Motion lapsed for want of a mover. So we have the... sorry? Oh, we have a mover. Councillor Kitchen. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Sciano. Councillor Kitchen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Straightforward.
Councillor Sciano. Shall we put it to the vote? Those in favour? That's carried unanimous. The draft scheme amendment number 68, Lot 2, Callinup Road, Chalorup. 14.2. Do I have a mover? Councillor Noonan. Seconder. Lapsed for want of a seconder. 14.3, Bustle Highway reclassification. Do I have a mover? Councillor Andrew. Seconder? Councillor Clues. Councillor Andrew.
I actually had an alternative motion that I wanted to put forward.
For which?
Uh,
Bustle Highway?
Yeah, 14.3.
14.3. Okay, yep.
So I don't know if... Sorry, Mr.
I've given you the call.
For me to speak to the amendment. So this amendment was written by the acting CEO at my request after conversation at the roundtable meeting on Monday. There's a number of road uses that aren't permitted on freeways, one of which is cyclists, and without a commitment, a secured commitment by adjoining local governments or the state government, if Bustle Highway was upgraded to a freeway, cyclists would not be able to get any further south than where the freeway begins, probably somewhat north of Capel. So this was an alternative motion that's been prepared. For that reason.
Excuse me, Councillor Andrew, do we have a seconder? We didn't have a seconder. Councillor Clues. I think you're getting into the debate, weren't you? Or-
No, just why it's been presented.
Yeah, you can do that now. You have a seconder.
I won't repeat everything I've said. That's why I requested an alternate recommendation from the acting CEO, who was kind enough to put it together for me.
Councillor Clues?
Pardon me. Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, obviously I was very keen to have the original item on the table, but this is just adding some even more information and equally important notes to the item without really changing what was already going to happen, just adding. So that's wonderful. Broadly on the initial recommendation, I am certainly, and I think there's a lot of people in the community that are desperate to get some answers and some future outlooks on that Bustle Highway, and particularly the Capel access and possible interchanges, and you know, we've got developments trying to go ahead that without knowing these things are being a bit stymied. So this will be hopefully finally the drive we need to get some answers that we've been asking for a long time, and get some resolution to a pretty big safety concern that many of us have.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against? If not, we'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Where are we? 14.4. Sorry?
That's the amendment which comes as substantive motion, or was it an alternative, was it? Okay.
.4 Extractive Industry Development Application for Lot 230 Elgin Road, Elgin. Do I have a mover? Councillor Noonan.
Could I
Sorry, are you moving or not?
could I move that this item be adjourned in order to give officers time with the applicant to
Hold on a
resolve
second, Councillor Noonan. I think we need to have the matter before us before we can adjourn it. So
Yeah.
you've jumped the gun a little, just marginally. So do we have a mover first? Councillor Clues. Seconder. Councillor Noonan. Now, before Councillor Clues gets started, Councillor Noonan, I believe you'd like to move a procedural motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I would like to move a procedural motion 12.1C that debate on this item be adjourned to enable the applicant and the staff to exchange more data, more information, so that will be in a better position to make
Hold on, is this part of your
Yeah.
amendment, or are
That's
you
it.
speaking to it?
No, that is the
How does the amendment read?
that the debate on the motion be adjourned to enable the applicant and staff to return with more data.
Okay, I'll second it. Is there any more discussion you'd like to back that up with, or have you gone there already?
Well, just to point out that we have had a presentation from the applicant prior, and really for the gallery, I suppose, prior to this meeting, and there is more information that we would like to ascertain, particularly in relation to the main issue, or the key issue, which is the water level, and the impact of any potential extraction on the water table, just to ensure that we all understand what's being what's being proposed, and that we get data which is available to better inform our decision.
Thank you. Nothing further from me. Anyone else for or against the amendment? Councillor Kitchen.
Thank you, Mr. President. More just to comment if the mover and seconder are happy to consent to a timeline being included in that amendment.
Councillor Noonan, do you wish to insert a timeline? We come back to adjourn to come back to what?
I think to the next ordinary council meeting, that's 4 weeks, so that should be time to resolve
if we
that
can
issue.
get that inserted, I think we've surmounted the problem. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against? We'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried 6-2. Thank you. I think we can now move on to 15.1, the policy review of superannuation. I'm informed by the acting CEO that this one was previously adjourned at a previous meeting, so we're resuming debate on this one. And I had moved an amendment, an amendment being that points A and B of the policy statement be removed and replaced with the words employees contributing a voluntary contribution will receive a Shire contribution of up to 5%. Now, I'm not sure why it was adjourned. I will, we have a seconder, so I'll just remind you why I moved this amendment, is that I believe I think it's 15% that I replaced was overly generous and unnecessary burden on our finances. The seconder was Councillor Clues.
Question, I guess, had no one spoken to this item prior to it being adjourned?
As the presiding member of this presiding officer at this meeting, the answer to that question has been lost in the midst of time. So, for practical purposes, we're going to move forward as though no one had spoken, and I don't think there's going to be any great offence caused by doing so.
Well, at risk of breaching one of the codes of conduct, I'll say nothing to the item then.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Okay, in that case, I'll put up Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll speak against the amendment that you've proposed, and the reason for that is in the comment from the officers, particularly if you look on page 88, the second last paragraph of the comment. Should the proposed amendment be carried, this would remove the cap of 14% and increase the current Shire contribution offer up to a total of contribution of 15%. The proposed amendment would also mean that the Shire's contribution would increase as the superannuation guarantee increases, such that by 2025 the Shire's total contribution will be up to 17%. Okay, so that's the 15. That's the and if you look back at as it moves from 10% up to 12%, then plus the additional 5. So we will end up, if we adopted this amendment, we would actually end up giving the staff even more superannuation, which sorry. So apologies, staff, apologies. But I think for exactly the reasons that you've made, Mr. President, that then places an additional burden on the ratepayers and so
Okay, well, given that, we should now probably put that to the amendment to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That's lost. 8-0. Now we revert to the substantive motion, and if anyone would care to offer me a way forward of to bring it into line with most other employers, then I'd be grateful. Do we have a mover already for that one? Who was the mover? Moved and seconded. So, Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was actually quite happy with the original motion as it was. I think that it, from the information that we had at the previous meeting when this was looked at, reading through all of that information, it looked as though this was a standard, fairly standard policy in terms of in relation to other local governments. So I was quite happy to go with the original motion, and so I will support that original motion.
Okay, Councillor Mogg. No, anyone else? Let's put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried 7-1. We're now going to move to 15.2, the revocation of the Code of Conduct. About 5 minutes too late. Do we have a mover? Councillor Clues. Seconded, Councillor Sciano. Councillor Clues. Councillor Sciano. Nobody. We'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. 15.3, the accounts paid during the month of June 2021. Any mover? Councillor Noonan. Seconder? Councillor Sciano. No discussion? Any questions? They've all been dealt with, I think, at the agenda briefing. We'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously, I think. Yes. Any new business of an urgent nature? Acting CEO. We have a second public question time. If there's any questions that have arisen? No. Motions without notice? Oh, there's a dead heat. Councillor Sciano. Oh, Councillor Kitchen. Councillor seconded. You got to move it first. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, item 14.2, as motion without notice.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Sciano. Councillor Kitchen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the officer's report is quite clear that the proposal's in line with our current strategic plans, meets all that it needs to meet. Happy to see that round off the bottom end of Julla up there. Straightforward. Thank you.
Councillor Sciano.
Thank you, Mr. President. It seems Councillor Kitchen was thinking exactly what I was thinking earlier with just bringing this back onto the table. I think I concur with Councillor Kitchen's comments as well, and I just think in the scheme of the area in which it is around as well, I think it is definitely a suitable development for the area in which it sits, and obviously, as Councillor Kitchen has mentioned, staff's report seems quite thorough that there should be limited or no issues there, so obviously support the officer's recommendation.
Okay, just one thing, Acting CEO. Did I skip something in which we had to have a vote on whether to accept a motion without notice? Is that right or not? We're in the middle of a motion without notice. Were we supposed to vote to approve the accept the moving of a motion without notice, or is that just?
So the
okay.
Chairman, standing orders just talk about absolute majority.
Okay, so we can put this to the vote. Those in favour? I think that's carried unanimous. Thank you. Notices of motion for consideration at the next ordinary meeting of council. We don't have any. Any items for consideration behind closed doors?
Excuse me, Mr.
Councillor
President.
Mogg.
Can I please go back to motion 18 without notice?
Sorry. What? I don't know.
Is that possible?
Just inform me what motion 18 is.
Motion without notice. Absolute majority by council. I would have liked to have put one in myself.
No, I'm sorry, we've moved on.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, if there's nothing further, I'll close the meeting at 7:27. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. President. On behalf of the council, I'd like council and I'm sure the public to acknowledge our acting CEO, Robert Stewart's last council meeting with us and the Shire tonight.